So one of my obsessions, if you like, is the traveling post offices of Egypt. And just a short introduction to say that it's a developing field. Every now and then I get new material which shows a completely different aspect of it. Uh, but to start with, as we know that Egypt has built one of the earliest railways in the world, in fact, and the Cairo Alexandria line was started in 1854, and immediately it carried mail. But the first record of mail sorting on the railway carriages, which is using the railway carriage to sort the mail, was in 1875. The railway expanded very quickly and developed one of the largest and most complex railway systems in Africa, and included standard gauge railways, in addition to a complex and extensive narrow gauge railway system serving the local agricultural community. And this still exists till today. If anybody's gone to Upper Egypt and you drove around, you see sometimes a very narrow railway gauge which is full of dust. That works probably once or twice a year during the sugarcane harvest, for example. It's fascinating. Many of those narrow gauge have now disappeared, but many of them still exists. So traveling post offices not only in railways, some of them are steamer routes and on boats, either on the Nile or in some of the lakes. And I'll show you some of that. I'm just going to move on now. Before we start showing you traveling post office, the cancellations are different. And this is what Peter Smith designed. So that design is Peter Smith. And he, before he passed away, has requested clearly that please do not change the system. You want to add to it, fine, but please do not. And I'm strictly adhering to that because it's an excellent system. So if you look, for example, on this screen here, you can see Fayoum to Cairo, for example, and vice versa. And that's one of the key clues to being a traveling post office, because it goes from to Cairo or Cairo to Fayoum. You've got the regular date, which is seen most in all our cancellations, but also you've got something different here. And I hope you can see my arrow moving, which is T145. I'll go back again here. T145 actually is the train number, and I'll tell you a little more about it in a minute. So the cancellation has got a digit, which is, for example, a TPO, and vice versa, for example, service indication. And then, which is the numbers, the type. Sorry, I'll go back one step. The types, according to Peter Smith, that is the structure of them here. So the number one is the service indicator. Number two will be the variation in service, and so forth. And I'll explain them later, but they're not as crucial. But these are the types that I will stick to because Peter Smith designed them, and he's got a fantastic monograph that he published in the 1980s about it, which is really remains the Bible for looking up any traveling post offices. So how does it work? The majority of TPO cancellation is got two cities, so it's from A to B. For example, this one is from Beni Suef, which is in Upper Egypt, to Cairo. And you've got the Saira here. So this is, that tells you it's a TPO, or AMB, which is ambulatory. It's always in Arabic and English. Sometimes the Arabic is at the top, sometimes it's at the bottom. And early on, if you remember, I mentioned something a minute ago about train numbers. For example, this bottom one is from Mansoura to Dumyat, which is in the north, and the train number is T16. But that actually was something that occurred gradually over the turn of the century in 1900s. Before that, you'll see from the 1800s onwards, you have a different one, which is a T and two Roman numerals, and sometimes not even a T, uncommon. And we think, not sure, we think that's a shift indicator. This is shift number one or shift number two, but there's no documentation that I can find, but I just assumed about it. Now, the train number is very interesting. This is a copy of the train timetable from 1916, if I remember correctly, which Mike very kindly provided it to me. And I'll just zoom into it. So if you look at train number 16 here, you'll find it there. And that tells you the timeline of this train. And you can actually tell exactly when this train left Mansoura and when it arrived Dumyat, or anywhere in between. Now, that's the crucial point. That the fact that it's on that line doesn't mean the letter arrived at Mansoura. The letter could be picked up anywhere and delivered anywhere. And this way, actually, you can literally trace the letter and find out where it started and where it ended. And this is one of the what I would call the fun bits of it. It's totally useless, but to me, I always enjoy finding a train going from A to B to C to Z, and and how efficient the system is. Incredibly efficient. And you're talking about 1926 for this one and 1910 for this one. It works like clockwork. Another thing about the train numbers, which is the odd and even, one is in one direction, always the odd in one direction, and the even is in the opposite direction. So let's look at a single TPO example. TPOs can be on cancellation can be 1, sometimes 2, and very occasionally 3. I have not yet seen 4. If somebody has, please let me know. I'd be delighted to have a 4th one, and I'm sure you'll charge me a fortune and I'll buy it off you. So this is a postcard. So this is the type here, according to Smith, and I won't go into detail too much about it, which is type 7A 3.3. It doesn't matter. But each type, what is relevant here, each type has got a date range. This type was seen from the 5th of the 10th, 07 to the 28th of the 1st, 15. This is a postcard made to Italy with a TPO as a primary cancellation, which is interesting because sometimes you do not see a city cancellation, which you normally see in any regular postal history letter. But the TPO becomes the primary cancellation, which tells us that this letter was delivered on the train as the first step without any previous cancellations. So this goes from Alexandria to Ramla, and this is actually almost very close to each other because looking at it, and if you look at the route comment here, T8 train departs from Sidi Gabr, which is the main station in Alexandria, and from the timetable, I can tell you it's 12:25, and directly to Ramla, arriving at 12:16, 12:36, because they're very close to each other. And timestamp Alexandria at 2 p.m. After that, it will take the boat from Alexandria to Italy. And this is another example here of a single TPA. Sorry, is there anybody coming? Any questions? Okay. This is an example of 2 TPOs. And what I've done at the bottom here is trying to caricature the routes, if you like. So this is, for example, from Banha, which is northeast of Cairo, to Ismailia, which is on the Suez Canal. So the letter posted to Alexandria to Cairo and redirected to TPOs, and also it's got a rural post for Mike to see. There it is here.
Delicious.
Upside down. So it's posted Alexandria on the 12th, 8 p.m. to Cairo. So that's in that here. And redirected first via Cairo Port Said TPO, which is here, going to Cairo to Port Said on the 13th on train T27, which is not here, it's on the opposite side, on the side. And then timestamp, and then goes to Ismailia. I'll try not to elaborate too much. This is another TPO cancellation, which is quite nice, actually, which is the letter posted from Ismailia on the 14th of September to Cairo via 2 TPO routes. And you can see from Ismailia on TPO1 goes to Banha, and from Banha to Cairo goes on TPO2. And in the route comment, you can actually literally trace every single where it stopped, where it changed, and how quickly. And it's the efficiency. It arrived the next day in this case. Now, this is another interesting one because now we've got 3 TPO markings and train numbers. So from this is in Fayoum area. And from Tamia, it left at 2055, taken TPO one train to 2025, arrives at a place called Sanuris, arrives at 1400, goes to Fayoum, takes TPO here, and you can see here the difference. There's a T25 train number, and it's 1910. It was still using the old system of T and two Roman numbers. Hasn't changed yet. And then from Fayoum, it takes another TPO to go to Wasta, which is a very important station, Wasta, because it's the junction between the whole Fayoum governorate and the Upper Egypt, Cairo to Aswan railway. And then again, it takes from Asyut to Cairo, it takes another TPO. And look at it. It started at 1255, changed twice, three TPOs, and it arrived at Cairo at 1740. How efficient is that? And you talk about 1910. Absolutely, to me at least, it's absolutely fascinating. And this is a period in Egyptian postal history where TPO cancellation illustrates the transition from the old indicators, which is like this one, T and two Roman numbers, to the new system of train numbers such as T25 here and T77 there.
Sammy?
Yep.
It occurs to me just looking at that I wonder whether or not the old system wasn't a T11, in other words, 2 for shift numbers, but for actually the first or second or third train of the day.
Could be. It's very difficult to find that. I looked into it. The timetables, I've got a timetable which a certain dealer has cost me an arm and two legs to get it from 1904, very old one. But it's not clear. It's very difficult because I haven't got a time. So I can't tell you which one it was. It's difficult, but it's possible.
No, I know that some of the early postal guides do have indicators for each main station of what train you should take, given the time of arrival of the postal material.
Yes,
it's efficient and it's fascinating. It's not quite properly sorted out yet for us.
No, I think that's a nice bit to study, really.
Yeah.
The more I look into TPOs, the more I find I need to do some more work. It's fast, but this is quite a nice one here. Cancellation. It's going to Bern in Switzerland, and this is a third one. Now this is one of my favorites actually. It's what I call a TPO race. You've all had if you're taking a train from London to Portsmouth and you're taking the slow train, it stops halfway and say, if you want to catch the faster train, get off here and catch the faster train and you arrive a bit earlier. So this is exactly what happened. And you're talking about 1916. So the first TPO here is Alexandria, which is T36, which is this one. There are two TPOs, Alexandria, Cairo, same date. So they have to be on the same route, really, somehow. It's not two different dates. And this departed at 12:15. And it picked up a letter in a place which so this is the slow train, and on the right is the fast train. So it stopped in a small place called Azbet Khorshid, which Mike might know from his rural work, at 12:46 p.m. So that's 12:15 to 12:46. And then it stops at Tanta, which is a main section right smack in the middle of the delta. And the letter is transferred because that's the express train now comes zooming in, which left after that. It doesn't stop at Azbet Khorshid, so it carries on. And the letter then transfers to the second TPO and arrives Cairo at 7:30 p.m., an hour early, saved an hour. And that all happened in 1916. It's just amazing, isn't it? How efficient the system was. And as you said, Mike, in your comment, that in the postal guide, it tells you how to change letters from one train to another and how to expect it.
Yeah.
Egypt had one of the best train systems in the world at the time. So I'm going to start now by looking at a region of TPOs. And as I said, I'd rather spend a bit of time explaining them rather than going through the whole 5 frames. This is the Chemin de Fer de la Basse Egypte, which is a lightweight train, narrow gauge one, and it was a 1 meter wide, which is unusual because most lightweight ones are 75 centimeters, and the big train normals are about a meter plus. I can't remember the exact number. But it was developed by a Belgian called the Baron Ampin, which some of you may be familiar with, because if you, whoever has gone to Cairo and then left the airport on Aruba Street, you can see on the left side this very strange Indian palace looking in the main street, which he built for himself. And he actually built Heliopolis in the middle of the desert. This guy went in the early 1900s and said, I'm going to build a city in the desert. And he built the first tramway, which we called Metro, to connect that city into central Cairo, which worked, which I took every day to school or to my university. I still remember that. It's gone now because the underground started. So the concession was signed in 1895, and he decided he's going to build a light railway up north in the northeast of Egypt in this area, which is a very agricultural area, lots of commerce working there, fishing in the lake Manzala there. So there's a lot of economics going, and light railways always go where the economy is actually very active. And the section was essentially, this is the diagram of the different lines within that. And some of them actually, for example, this line, which is the Mansoura Matarea line, replaced a canal TPO. In here, there used to be a canal. Probably still is there. I can't remember, I can't tell, but it was used as transport. And there are traveling post offices, which I've got. So you've got the 5 different potential lines, and they're all light railways. And the problem is getting the timetable with light railways. I think I've got only 2 of one in Arabic and one in French. The most of the timetables that are published are the large state railways. Those are incredibly difficult to find. So, that's better. It's out of the way here. Can I get this out of the way? Like that. So this is the Mansoura Matarea line, for example, which I'll go back here, which is the Mansoura Matarea, which is probably the most important one there. And these 2 identical postcards provide an excellent example of TPO usage in Egypt. Both travel in the same direction, despite contradictory TPO. I'll mention that. The first is Mansoura Matarea, which is the opposite of direction of travel, while the second is Matarea Mansoura, reflecting the true direction of travel. And that's an important point. If you ever collect TPOs, the fact that it says Mansoura Matarea doesn't tell you the direction. What tells you the direction is the train number. So, for example, this is Mansoura Matarea T2. And remember, if I mentioned earlier, all even numbers are in one direction, odd numbers are in the opposite direction. So you got T2 here and T2 there, so they both are going in the same direction. However, this is Mansoura Matarea and this is Matarea Mansoura. Why? Ask the Egyptians. It's one of the mysteries of TPOs. I have no idea why that is.
But which one is wrong?
Well, this is now TPO cancel. I have to read it. Stationary postcard from Dekernis to Alexandria with TPO as primary cancellation. So the first is Mansoura Matarea, which is the opposite. So they're both going from Matarea, which is on the lake, to Mansoura, which is on the Nile. So that's wrong.
Okay.
It says in Arabic, but it's T2. It's very clear. And also, if you follow from the cancellation to where it's going, it makes perfect sense.
Yes.
And that's how you find out.
But there's a contradiction in both, isn't it? T2 Mansoura, T2 Matarea.
Yeah, but T2 tells you they're both. T2 is correct. T2 tells you the correct direction. It's going from Matarea, which is on the lake and in the east, to Mansoura, which is on the Nile to the west, and then carries on to wherever it wants to go.
Yes, yes.
I found this very interesting here. It's quite unusual.
That's fascinating.
And this one is a folded sheet addressed to Cairo. This is another one from Mansoura. Again, it's T10 here, for example. I'm not going to dwell too much on this one. But they're different types. For example, I put them there because, for example, this is type 7A3, and this is type 7A3.4 because it's different. It looks different. Structure is different. And this is another one, another different type, 3.4A variant. So, as I said, with Peter Smith's request that we do not change, whenever there's a new one, I just add the word variant to it because it looks a bit different. And this is interesting because it's got a new early date. Again, time, this lower one, it was from the Kirnis from 2 to 3 p.m. on the Kirnis. TPO train leaves at 6:15, arrives at 8:20, and time stamped at the same time. So it's incredibly efficient. And again, this is another variation here. It's a nice official letter, which is Hukuma al-Masriya. And this oval is quite important, actually. They're always horrible. You can hardly read the majority of them. But this, when you see this oval on any Egyptian postal history, that tells you it's an official governmental letter, and therefore postage is not required. I see there's no postage stamps on this one. And you've got a nice Egyptian seal here, letter seal on it. And it's nice, the Mansoura. And you've got here the brackets, which is not present around it, which is nice. It's a different variant from another ones. Again, it's T23, and you can follow very clearly. T23 departs Mansoura at 10:20, arriving when it's timestamp. Very, very efficient. So we're going to different types here, and this is interesting because there's only one known copy of that one. And so this is the second copy. So one is September, and it's Mansoura Mahallet Inshas and vice versa. So it's type 7A3 and letter originally TPO line. Sometimes you cannot tell, as I mentioned before, where the letter was posted simply because, like in this case, the TPO is the primary cancellation on that stamp. So we have no idea which city it came from, somewhere on the line. That's all we can say. Sorry, any comments?
We know that it was sorted on the train itself.
Correct.
Do we?
Has to be.
That means on the train.
Yeah.
We don't know how it got onto the train.
Correct.
At some stage, railway station post offices were in the charge of the station master, were they not? Not in the charge of the post office as such, but in charge of the station master. So you would pop along to the station, give the station master your letter, and he would say, right, we'll send that off with the next train. But he had no postmark of his own to put on it.
That explains it beautifully. That's very nice, helpful, Mike. Thank you very much. Because that is actually not quite a common thing, having the TPO as a primary cancellation.
It is common. It's common. It's astonishingly so. Yes. Yeah.
Well, presumably they save money by not having a post office in the station or in the small towns.
And I don't know the answer. Yeah.
Does he get double paid?
Well, it's a very odd situation and very interesting because I know that when my great aunt got married, my great grandfather hired a train for her, and they took her to very near the husband's farm, and there a carriage picked her up And so I'm wondering whether, in fact, there weren't all sorts of services such as these associated with the post office.
Oh,
The answer, I'm sure, is correct. Yes, you're correct. However, if this has a train number like this one, the cancellation, this is an official service. If it has, I don't know if the other special trains that are hired can take post or not. I can't answer that. But if it has a train number, it's official. And that's one of the important clues.
No, I was just wondering whether, in fact, the mails were, if someone wanted to send mail from a remote location, whether there wasn't some train stop where they could just deliver the letter, and then it would be canceled at the appropriate place.
The train, yes. I'm sure that's exactly right. That's what Mike was also commenting on, is that
Yeah.
the station master probably acts as a go-between. As you can see, it's just a fascinating to try to understand how these, I mean, we see all the letters, we see all the cancellations, but it's nice to shed a light on what actually really happens to them in the movement.
if ever we do make it to Cairo in January, one of the things I would love to do is to go to see a working post office. We've never managed to do that, but it would be a lovely thing to do.
I think
that's just by the by.
I think you probably need special permissions.
Oh, I'm sure we would. I'm sure.
I tell you one thing. I went to the Railway Museum, which is in Bab el Hadid.
Yeah.
And they have all the timetables, all of them, everything.
And can you get hold of them?
Well, I could open them and look at them. I said, "Can I scan them?" No. Well, you have to have permission from almost the sub-minister of transport.
Yeah.
It was driving me nuts. I said, "Look, does it matter in 1903 which train left what station?" Said, "No, can't do it." And in fact, I went to the lady in charge. I went to her through a contact, so she was very helpful. And she actually took me to the station master in the thing, and we waited in his office, and nothing happened as in Egypt. Inshallah.
You needed bakshish.
Yes. No, well, she was actually quite senior. She's the manager. She was trying to help me, but she says, "I cannot do it. You have to ask." I mean, I went to the Postal Museum once, and they opened the thing, and I scanned quite a lot of stuff, and I gave them a small amount of money, and they were very, because I told them who I am and what I'm trying to do. It's not business, and I scanned quite a lot of the old not timetables, but old railway and booklets, which was quite interesting. So again, this is another one, which is, I just mark it here because it's just one known copy again, Mansoura. We'll move on. Now, this is an interesting one because, again, it shows you have two TPOs here. The folded sheet requesting sick leave inside, mailed from Mansoura to a place called Faraskour, which is north of Mansoura. And it's franked with a 2 mil de la Rue one, which is the stamp for printed matter. So the route comment is interesting because on 11th of October, cancelled at Mansoura. The state railway from Dumyat to Tanta, which is down here, there it is down here, not very clear, which is T56, left Mansoura, arrived at a place called Sherbin, and there's a transit CDS there. Possible train change, why, we don't know. And then arrived Faraskour. So it was going from one place to another, and halfway, there's a transit CDS cancellation. Why? And I'm speculating. There's a train station. Did it change this train there? It doesn't tell you. Was the train faulty or something wrong with it? But if you look at timetable, it should have been run through. So it arrived for a score and stamped at 10:15. It was 7:50, arrived 10:15. And then it's taken over by the lightweight from Mansoura to Dumyat And this is the return, and this is the return journey, because he asked for sick leave. It went all the way, and then it returned back approved. So the man can.
Sick leave from what company?
I'll have to open the letter and look it up. I'm sorry, I apologize. But it's usually the majority are actually, believe it or not, a large number of them are from schools, either schools.
So
or
wouldn't
government.
wouldn't that make it official and not necessarily put a stamp on it?
If it's a local school, the answer is no. So if it's a school, any for a school, I'm trying to read it upside. Yes, it is the headmaster of the school. It's not. I'm reading it upside down. It is a school.
So not official enough to be official mail.
It's a state school, but it's not official government business. So it's not governmental business, but it's a state school. But all schools do have to put. But if it comes from an official government, then they will have the oval on it.
Right.
Again, this is. I'll skip some of those because that's Mansour Dumyat there. Now going to the Cairo Alexandria TPO route, which is actually the original. I just started the other one because I thought it was interesting. And in all frankness, I had half a frame to fill, and I didn't want to start the Cairo Alexandria there. Just logistics. So this is the most important one, probably. And
for those who are interested, look at the next QC.
Yes. There's one on the. I put a little. Is that the one that's going to appear on this one?
Yep.
Okay. In fact, could you see it on that? Probably. Anyway, so this is the very, very first TPO cancellation in Egypt. And this was the type 1, obviously. And it was actually in Italian. It's the Cairo Alessandria, ALES only. Because all at the time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, you probably know more about this than I do. It all started Italian and then switched to French and then English. So this came, a UPU stationary postcard from the port of Bari in southern Italy, made the 9th of January 1876 to Cairo. No cancellation there. Via the port of Alexandria. And it arrived in Alexandria on the 14th of January. So it actually took 6 days to travel. And the traveling post office from Cairo, Alexandria arrived the same day. Of course. It's prepaid, but had to be uprated. There's an uprated section somewhere here. I think that's it here. It had to be uprated. Transit time is 6 days. So this was quite unusual because it had the TPO cancellation both on front and verso, and I've put it here. Usually you get only on one side, usually on the stamp side, but this one had a TPO cancellation on both sides. Why? I don't know.
It is the same date, is it?
Yes, exactly identical. 14th of presumably
January. Yeah.
January is in Italian. My Italian is 00. Italian is limited to word spaghetti, I think.
What about vino?
Oh, vino tinto. No, that's Spanish, isn't it?
I don't know.
Red wine is important. Anyway, there's another interesting one here too, because from Lausanne, Switzerland, most of those original TPOs are coming from outside Cairo, from outside Egypt into Egypt. And transit postmarked from Geneva and Brindisi, arriving Alexandria, which is the primary port, and traveling to Cairo on the same day to PO and prepaid. And transit date is 13 days. And I said the 13 days because it was a leap year, so I need to get the maths right. But these are very important because these are the earliest TPOs. And in fact, as Mike says, the next QC will show Peter Smith has written an article about must be 20 years ago, saying that he noticed that there are 2 types of this. So there's only type 1 in his thing, but he wrote it editor. And this is type 1 and there are 2 types. And there's an article in TPO telling you the difference between them. I think these are both the same type, actually. So we now get to type 2A again. We're talking about 1880. So this is really early stuff and quite unusual. And again, it is, as you can see, the difference is different now. This is ambulant instead. If you look at the previous one, sorry, at the previous one, it is ambulanti with an E. And this is ambulant without an E. And it's unusual. It's got Arabic and English both here, and the ambulant and Saira, which means TPO in Arabic on both sides on at the bottom. And you can see this is a slide again. You got the T followed by the Roman 6 V1, 6 shift, 6 train. I'm not sure. Again, this is mailed in Berlin, coming inwards, and this is mailed in Alexandria to Colorado. So this is one of the few. This is the reverse one. But the type 1, all the ones, I may be wrong, but I'm reasonably sure that the type 1s are always coming from outside into Egypt. Yeah, this is quite a difficult one to. I've got a root comment here, which is mailed from Alexandria to Colorado. All right, no problem there. Why does it have a traveling post office Cairo Alexandria on it? I don't understand it. So it's because from the opposite side, it's clearly handwritten on verso. It's written from Alexandria, so I know it is actually posted in Alexandria. And I said it's intriguing to note that the postcard mailed in the port of Alexandria to the USA would require to travel on the Alexandria-Cairo traveling post office train. I have no explanation.
Well, it had missed the trip. It had missed the ship in Alexandria, so he was going to Cairo and then over to Port Said to get the next ship.
Well, that is.
They will not have called at Alex.
That's perfectly good. A good answer.
But there is no Port Said CDS.
No, but it doesn't have to
They
be.
didn't have time.
Yeah. That's absolutely fascinating. Yes, quite possibly. Yeah, that's a good point. So the ship didn't, and transit time is 17 days, but that's normal for America. I would have thought at that time. They were all, I mean, 1883, 1894. Would they have had steamships then?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Steam came in the 1820s.
1820s. All right.
Yeah. And gradually steam and sail, and then eventually, of course, they discarded the sail.
Yes. We have in Portsmouth here in the historic dockyard a ship called the Warrior, which has both sails and steam. And what's fascinating about it is that the screw for the steam can be lifted out of the water by a machine, by a mechanism. So if it's sailing, it doesn't drag. Absolutely fascinating. If you ever come to Portsmouth, come here because there's quite a lot of things to see in the historic dockyard, including the Mary Rose and the Nelson's Victories in their fascinating place. I'll be your guide.
Sammy, when you talk about the sail and steam, when the Suez Canal was open, they had to have steam on all the ships.
Yes.
Just in case there was no wind to fill the sails. So if you notice, all the ships that sailed through the Suez Canal 1870 onwards, in the early days, had steam and sail.
That makes a lot of sense. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Because originally some of there were TPOs on the Suez Canal on the ships, and then from Port Said down to Ismailia, it became a light railway which took over. And I've got some of them here. I said it's done an hour now. I'm just going to keep going for a little while. I don't want people to fall asleep.
Don't think that's likely.
Sorry, any comments?
I've got. Sorry.
Sammy, I have a question for you, Sammy.
Please.
Yeah. Right at the beginning of your presentation, you showed a plan that Peter Smith had designed showing how to write about and designate the TPOs. Now,
Types, yes.
that plan that you have doesn't appear in his Travelling Post Office's book, and it doesn't appear in his tome that he wrote about old matters Egypt.
It does actually. He doesn't put it in graphic form, but he's got a page telling you what is type 1, what is type 2, and what is type 3, etc. And he's telling you, yes, in his book. I've got it here somewhere. Yeah, I'll even tell you the page here. I've got it right here. It's in page. I've got it here. Now, these are all the names here. So that's it here. Yeah, it's on page 36. It tells you the first digit, second symbol, third symbol, and fourth symbol.
It just tabulates it. It doesn't have it as a plan as you showed.
No, I thought I'd just make it clearer. That's why.
Yeah,
because it took me a long time to understand it.
Yeah, that's all right. Yes.
I was sort of scratching my head off for quite a long time, and after a while, you look at it and say, "Oh, that's type 2, that's type 3." This is a particularly nice one I like because there are not many cancellations in the Egyptian philately postal history with a star and crescent. There are several, but not a huge number. And this is one of the very few TPOs with a star and crescent on them. And this is one of my favorite, really. That's why I call it's quite rare, really. And there are sometimes interesting things, like this one is out of stationary use. Postage for external postcards was reduced from 5 to 4 mils. And this is the 5 mils in July 1899. And this is a year later. So it's overpaid by 1 mil, but that's as long as it's overpaid, it's okay. And this one is again, there's 3 mils and 4 mils. So this tells you the correct price here, which is the 4 mils, rather than that. And as you can see, because they're quite old. Now, this is interesting because remember when I said in the early ones, you don't have train numbers, you have Roman numerals. But this is the Roman numeral without the T. Well, this one below here is a Roman numeral, which is TV1, which is 6, and this is 1V, which is 4. There are huge variations, and the more you look at them, the more you find variations. I mean, I was one of my tasks was to see if I could write a book with Ibrahim Shukri. Was asking me to do that because he's got a large collection, which gave me access to it. And the more you do it, the more complicated it gets. And you thought you broke something in. So I think what I'll do probably is to publish it on our website. And this way, like Sami Farid was saying about publishing on Amazon, you can actually modify it. I'm just going to publish it on the website, and you can add to it, remove it, or whatever. This is again one of my favorite ones because it's the Ahram newspaper dated 30th of October 1894, which the first edition was 1876. So it's about 16 years old. Mailed the same day via Alexandria Cairo TPO, which you can see that this is it here, and that's I've made it clear here.
Well, Ahram means pyramid, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Ahram means pyramid, and it's still the same newspaper is still published up to now called Ahram. It's almost the most the official. It's what's the right word? It's official governmental thing. It's supposed to be free, but it isn't. It mimics the official government view, the Ahram. It's missing the wrapper, which would have had a 1 mil stamp covering the postage of printed material. So I have no idea. There's no transit time. That's just this one there. And this is issue number 5056 in Arabic. And occasionally you get something here that's like this one. It's 3B1, according to Peter Smith. And it's a variant which is not previously described, which has the month European, for example. like this one here, and I've got two of them to show you. So this 7th of February 97, the one described originally by Peter Smith had the month as European, as Roman, sorry.
It's interesting that Peter Smith didn't distinguish between European and Latin month indicators.
Yeah.
That's only happened as we've looked at it more closely since then.
Yeah, you've published quite an extensive, Mike, which is incredibly helpful. You've done quite a lot of work on the TPOs originally, and you've divided. I think you're the first one to divide the months from Roman to European, because they are different.
They are different. They must obviously be different hand stamps.
Yeah. And quite often you find different sizes of the same thing, and you have to ask the question: where are these hand stamps made? Are they made centrally? Sorry, Sammy.
No, I'm not muted.
So the question is, where are these hand stamps made at that time in 1897? Are they centrally made, or can the local people make their own, for example?
Within the Journal Officiel, I found an invoice from an Alexandria company called Margotche that was for making hand stamps. But I've never seen any other reference to it anywhere. I've seen Margotche invoices for other things, but not for hand stamps.
Yeah. Because the variations in the hand stamp is enormous. I mean, if you're a philatelist and you like variations, perfect. But you keep finding new ones all the time.
I think that certainly as far as TPOs and rurals are concerned, there must have been local manufacture, because there were more. The number of hand stamps poured out must have been by the million.
Yeah.
Too many for one company to produce, I think.
Yes. So this is a very, very common cancellation, which is Alexandria to Cairo TPO, which has the word foreign mails on it. There are two foreign mails, one's the Alexandria Cairo and the Port-Said Cairo, and they are exclusively for incoming mail only. And they are very short-lived. They didn't last very long. Well, this one actually lasts very long. The Port-Said one lasts much longer. But these are the two only hand stamps with the word foreign mails in it, or in Arabic, Irsaliyat Kharijiyya. Why did they choose to do that for this one? But they are, I said, exclusively for incoming mail. And at that time, there were other similar TPOs, but different types. So it's not the only TPO for that line for that period.
Where did the Port Said Alexandria route run?
I think I've got a different one there. That was a real, I might have it further down. I can't remember. But that was a great problem for me to solve, because you had the Port Said to Alexandria TPOs.
How?
And I found it out because it was always the same train, 94, if I remember correctly. It changed because the timeline, if you look at them, if they go to Cairo, there's zero chance of them arriving on the same day, which they did. So they had to change somewhere else. And it is Banha, which is north of Cairo. And eventually I found data to prove it. That was one of the mysteries of TPOs that I solved. Again, totally useless, but great fun. I mean, we do this to enjoy ourselves, don't we? Yes. So this is for males. Oh, now, this is quite a nice one, really nice one, because this is quite rare. And if you look carefully, it is TPO 19 Alexandria. And this is what we call a single transit TPO. And I've got a whole collection of those, and there are 7 places that have single transit. Peter Smith say the transit TPOs, but that's actually not accurate, because you can start at Alexandria, they can pass through it, they're not transit. But why have a clear TPO? It says clearly TPO on it here. So it's no question it's a TPO, traveling post office. But why one city? Again, that's a mystery. And I've got a presentation which I call the enigma of the single transit TPO. And this one is quite nice because not only is it single transit, it gives you the train number in two places, TPO 19 here, and automatically is T19. And the TPO is the primary cancellation here, as you can see it down here. In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4 times, just in case you're not sure. And it's actually Barid Mistagil, means it's express mail. So it's 20, not the usual 10. And it arriving Alexandria from the 15th of July, arriving Alexandria same day, 20 minutes correct express letter charge. And T19 is an express train, departs Cairo 15:30, arriving Alexandria 18:45, cancelled at 17:30, so it's less than an hour later, which is 19:20. Amazing efficiency. Okay. Nothing special. Again, this is just to illustrate that the same TPO, the same type, which is 5A2, can be small, 34 millimeters, large, 30 millimeters. I think there is also a 28 one. Why? Again,
manufacturer.
Say again?
A different manufacturer.
Yes. Or different people doing it locally. Another guy made it.
Yeah. Is it Arabic the same?
Identical, but it's smaller, of course. This has got more space here. Escandria or Masr Sayra, Escandria or Masr Sayra. And the Sayra, which means traveling, is without brackets. Sometimes it has brackets, sometimes it hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the 5A2 month is Roman and no brackets type. And 5A. Now, this is interesting because that might change actually now, because I'm getting some stuff again from one of my dealer friends in Egypt. Well, he's the only one I go to, in fact. You probably all know him, but I won't name names. He's sending me quite a few modern TPOs. And at that time, when I made that presentation, it was the latest known TPOs, which is 1952. Since then, I think there's something coming in the QC with 2 later TPOs, but that might, it's still happening now, but much less. And the problem with modern cancellations, they are absolute rubbish. I mean, you can see how difficult this, and I did quite a lot of work to expand it, look at it. And when I use Photoshop here, but I do not add, I just clarify. So if you look here, for example, the word Alexandria, half of it's missing, and I just don't add it. But this one here again. Now this is interesting because wrong TPO year date. Why? The stamps were issued on the 1st of January 1958. And the 60 piastre airmail late was introduced in April 59. The TPO date should be 1959, not 1952. So again, I think at that time, and I'm sure all of us know that as time goes by, Egypt's attention to detail has dropped significantly, which gives us a lot of problems. I think many collectors do not enjoy looking after modern Egyptian postal history. Stamps are different, but postal history, simply because the letters are not very clear and not very nice to see. And that is an example here, not a better example of the official oval. So official folded letter posted from Alexandria to Cairo, arriving same oval official hand stamp in lieu of franking. And you've got, again, the official governmental seal here. And very nice, clear cancellation here.
Where's the oval?
Right there.
Hmm?
Can you see my arrow moving?
Oh,
Bottom
yeah.
left.
Oh, the eye. Yeah.
And it is Alexandria. I think it's a from the court, probably the mixed court Was the mixed court? No, it's too early for the mixed court, I think, maybe.
Oh,
They're they drive me nuts because I was quite interested in doing, I've accumulated quite a lot of those over the years, and I would like to write them up, but the quality of ovals is appalling.
If you find one that you can read, it's an absolute bonus.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Because the official mail without stamps nobody's written it up. I've looked everywhere. There's mention here, mention out, but nobody's done a proper writing up of them. And there's a huge amount of material. And I used to collect it in bulk, quite cheaply, in fact. And I've got them here. I need to sit and write them up at some stage, or at least make a start on them. David, just let me know when you want me to stop, okay?
Well, I thought you were carrying on all night, actually. But
I could, because I'm only in 26 in a 5-frame thing. But as I said, it's more fun to actually say something in detail rather than rush through bits here.
Yes.
This is that.
This is exactly the sort of presentation we're very lucky to have at these meetings. But if people want to just show us smaller things, that they're very welcome to, of course.
I wasn't sure. I just started because I knew I could stop any time.
Yes, I've got one comment to make or observation, if I may, and it's more about railways than about stamps. I was interested to read that there's a huge modernisation programme for Egyptian railways. They've signed €1 billion contract with Skoda. I'd like to know where the money comes from.
It's called the money tree.
And
I mean, that is a very important issue that you've raised, because it's not only that, they've got a $36 billion railway contract with Germany, which runs from the Red Sea, north of Cairo, all the way to the Mediterranean after Marsa Matruh.
yes,
high-speed train.
It opens in 2027 from Ain Sokhna, as you say, to Marsa Matruh.
And it's 36 billion.
Yes, it's a bargain. I could pay for it myself.
Well, the German government actually said they cannot afford to build it for themselves. And I mean, the problem, the Egyptian national debt is out of control. I think it was $30 billion originally when Sisi took over, and now it's about 170 or something like that. It's out of control.
Yes. And sorry, and can I just add, there's future lines planned from 6th of October City, that's near Cairo, isn't it, to Aswan. And then there's another line planned from Luxor to Safaja. And in the distant future, I don't suppose we'll be around, but there'll be lines from Marsa Matruh to Siwa and to Benghazi in Libya.
Yes. I wouldn't be. I've got an issue with the super fast train, because I think the trains that you mentioned, David, are very, very important, because these are commercial trains that will help local economies. But the fast trains, who's going to use the fast trains except tourists? And not many will use them. But the ones that you mentioned are, and the military supervises them. They get the local contractors to build them, but they actually do the supervision and the timeline and push them very hard. So we'll see.
Yes. I used to commute regularly from Sohaj to Asyut, and once I got the 3rd class train by mistake, so I shared the carriage with goats and chickens. They all wanted some of my lunch.
And don't even mention the toilets.
Yeah, the hole in the ground, the hole in the floor of.
Yeah, you go there and you see the ground running out. I've taken a 3rd class once a long time ago.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do this one and then stop.
Yes.
This is a minute. This is quite a new type, because I just mentioned this one. it's just an example of how one finds new types. And this one was 1956, and it's a military one, also from El Arish, which is almost near Gaza, by the Cairo Alexander TPO. And the franc was exemption for military mail. So this was, it says in Arabic here, Barid al-Harbi, which is military mail. And it's addressed to another military who's called Sammy. And I think that's probably, I should stop here.
You're on interesting ones now without any TPO indicator.
Yes, this is type 8, which Peter Smith, and these are, they've got no, it's clearly Alexandria to Cairo, so it's a TPO, there's no doubt whatsoever. And it's 1905, and it's got the Roman here without the T, which is 7. This one has got a Roman of 1. And these are the oldest ones. Not all the very oldest one, but these are old. And they don't have any TPO markings, like, and vice versa, ambulant, etc., etc. None of that. So this is quite a unusual one. But this one carried on for quite a long time. This particular, no, this is the whole TPO, sorry, I beg your pardon. This is from 1906 to 1908. And this is the only, I think I'll probably stop this. This is another one, which is very rare, the only documented copy, which is the month format European, which is 21st of May. If you see this one, for example, the month is Roman.
Mm.
The next one, identical one, but it's 1 month European. And the type is not described for this route. I think I should. This is quite a nice one. I could carry on forever. David, do you want me to stop?
If you know, no, do carry on for a bit longer if you like.
Okay.
I don't want to stop you in your, you know.
Again, I particularly like this one because it's got a beautiful, absolutely beautiful star and crescent there. Although I'm told that this lower one may be a forgery because it's not as clear, but this one is definitely 100% not a forgery. Beautiful, absolutely stunning. And this is another Cairo Alexandria ones. Again, they're all type 8s because they've got no TPO indicator, just the names of the two towns, and they're all in the early 1900s, late 1800s.
Could you go back to the last star and crescent? I'd like to do a screenshot, please.
Of course, yeah.
That's it. Just a moment. I've got it. Go ahead. Thank you.
If you email me, I'll be very happy to scan it for you.
Thank you so much.
I'll give you a much better quality bit if you want. No problem.
Thank you.
And so this one is the Cairo, another type. And you just add new late dates because as you find more TPOs, you find that the date range has changed and added, and it's a very dynamic thing. I like this one too, and again, it's quite unusual because it says in Arabic down here, Alexandria Cairo T24, which is a well-known express train from Cairo to Alexandria, or Alexandria to Cairo. But in Arabic, and I've enlarged it here, and I've got 2 examples of it here. It says Qatr, which train 24. This is it's beautiful because it just confirms what we always knew indirectly, but this actually tells you this is Qatr 24 Arba Ashrin, which is train 24. It's made from Italy, arriving the following year because it was built on the 31st of December to Alexandria, and the Cairo type, which is the 24 is the Alexandria to Cairo express train.
And even the express is 4 hours.
Frank, it stops to Cairo, departs, arriving. Yes, it's 4 hours. Well, right now, I mean, I think the train right now, even the express train right now is over 2 hours. It's not that quick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the one that runs in the desert. They're not very fast trains. And they occasionally get the very nasty train crashes, I'm afraid. So this is the one that we talked about. It's the Port Said to Alexandria. And I think I'll do this one, I'll stop, because Port Said Alexandria route. So it's made from Port Said to Alexandria via Port Said Alexandria TPO route. So there's no doubt at all. Port Said to Alexandria TPO. And it's franked with that. Postcard made from, let me just read that. I'll skip this one. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Mike, that answers your question that you were asking. How come there's a Port Said to Alexandria TPO, and the train 18, T18, State Railway to Cairo, leaves at 12:20, arriving to Tanta here at 4:15 p.m. and you have to change at Banhat train stations so that it will actually get to Alexandria quickly. And I think on that stick, I'll probably stop because I've got too much. I'm happy to. If nobody wants to do anything, I'm happy to do another one just to keep things going. I've got quite an interesting one I'd like to present. There's only one frame on the military TPOs around the First World War in 1916, 1917, and as to how the British TPOs moved with the forces crossing the canal and going into Sinai and eventually getting into Palestine. Some of them are very, very interesting. Yeah. Shall I stop, David? See if anybody else wants to discuss anything.
If we can go back just one page, Sammy.
Yeah.
Yes. Any comments or questions for Sammy?
Yeah, here's one. This suggests Port Said to Cairo, or Port Said in the direction of Cairo, but change at Tanta. So is there a Port Said Dumyat TPO? There is.
I think Port Said Dumyat.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Because this would suggest that was possible.
No, you have to go through something else first. Because Port Said Dumyat, essentially, you think about the north coast of Egypt, which is
yes,
no train line between them.
No, but
there are not even proper roads because it's just full of lakes and what have you.
No, but the map here suggests Port Said down to Tanta, then Tanta Mansoura Dumyat. Yes, is there a Port Said Dumyat?
No, not that I think. I'll have to look it up, but there's so many of them. But as far as my memory serves me, the answer is no. I'll look it up. Mind me.
Thank you.